Welcome to Turmeric and Tequila with your host, Kristen Olson. Questioning a better way, one gracefully disruptive conversation at a time.
Welcome to Turmeric and Tequila. I'm super excited today. This is a random, I'm not going to say interruption. This is a graceful disruption into the podcasting schedule because we are just wrapping up Podfest Origins. I unfortunately wasn't there in person, but all the Podfest fam, they're doing tons of things. And one of the things they have going on right now are Pod Connect one-on-one, and they're connecting us fellow podcasters. So I connected with Peter. He is in Malaysia, which is amazing. And he's a podcaster, Japanese speaking online marketer, and animation video creator. We're going to talk about so many things. It's just so amazing. We're going to highlight the power of connection and community. We're obviously in two different countries, way far away, but yet we share this passion for podcasting. So without further ado, Peter, welcome to Turmeric and Tequila.
Yes, thank you for Christine for invite me for this show. So it's quite exciting to interview with you.
Yes, absolutely. I'm super pumped, and we have not even done a pre-call. You know, if anyone listens to Turmeric and Tequila, you know that we really like the raw, authentic conversation. So we're just going to jump right in. Peter, tell us a little bit about your background, your expertise, and kind of what got you into podcasting.
Yeah, okay. I'm in Malaysia right now, so I've been teaching Japanese in university for more than 15 years. Then I am also involved in the whiteboard animation to teach my students as well. So for the podcasting journey, I was started last year around August. So after I attend the Podfest Global, then get inspired by so many podcasters and then most major inspired by the Chris Krimitsos, the book Start Ugly.
Yes.
Yeah. So to teach us that to tell us that we don't need to perfect to start, but we need to start to be continue our journey. So from there, I start my podcast episode. Yeah.
So your podcast, you focus, I'm with you, Chris, at, the Start Ugly. His book is such an awesome tool for anyone out there questioning a better way, as we say in Turmeric Tequila. If you want to get started, it's going to be ugly no matter what, because you just learn so much as you go. So it's a good way just to kick out there. Your podcast focus on entrepreneurs and inspirational, motivational strategies. Have you always been an entrepreneur?
Yes, I've been myself also entrepreneurs, and then I also have my own my center to teach my student as well. Besides, I'm teaching in university, so I'm quite excited to share the passion and share other story, their success story, their failure story, to inspire the out there who want to start up their business.
That's awesome. Do you want to give some quick pro tips on what are like some of the first conversations or first words of advice you give someone that's like, listen, I'm an entrepreneur, I want to start. What's some of your first words of advice?
Yeah, my first advice is we all have the dream, so we just don't want to dream it, but we really need to take the action, to take the first step to action to really to become our first startup or first entrepreneurship. So because we really don't know how far or how well we can go it, but we need to just start up.
So you just basically just take that first step no matter what, and then kind of go from there. Well, so you started the podcast. Has your process changed now that you kind of started it, you're a year in? Like, what has changed in your process? Like, what have you gotten better at, do you think?
Yeah, for me, when I start my first podcast is in Mandarin. My first language is in Mandarin. Then after that, I've joined a lot of different conference and different connection with others. Then more and more, I'm more confident to speak in English. And then my audience, my audience is from the US, UK base. So my audience base also is more on the UK and US. And my guest also is mostly from the UK and US as well. So it's give me more opportunity to drive more the listener, and then more the how to say, the listenership to the worldwide, not only focus on Malaysia but in the worldwide.
That's amazing. So you really are
Mm.
like, you're truly international.
Yes.
And I'll say all over the map. That's
Mm.
pretty inspirational. And you can see
Mm.
the importance of community. I know when I went to Podfest last year or 2 years ago, I think now in person, it was so great to see how different we all were. I mean, obviously like ethnicity, gender, whatever. But like our podcasts were so deeply different. However, a lot of people had really similar core values, like very
Mm.
mission driven. Very few people are making money. So it was very passion driven. It was a really exciting group of people. Was that your experience as well?
Yes, definitely. When we join the Podfest, it's not just the event, but it's more on the family base. So when we join the Podfest, after the event, we still need to have the Facebook group to connect with each other. And then when we have any question, we still can call up to meet up. And most I like is we have the community like one a week we meet up. And then although the time zone is different for me, uh, for me it's around 1 a.m. or 12 a.m. midnight to meet up with the US friends. So it's but quite enjoyable for me during this podcast journey. I can meet up with them and then to discuss more win or what we need to support with each other. So it's quite amazing for me.
That's amazing. Yes, it is a worthy note. So Podfest, the whole group does a really good job of getting everybody together, and they do online meetings like pre and post event. And I know you taught a master class, so they get the speakers together. I did the case study, and it's so cool. Everybody gets on the Zoom call, and God bless everybody that's outside of America, because you guys are, the time difference is insane. So some people are coming in at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Like, it just goes to show the commitment of everybody around the community. And again, so very few of us are making money off of this. So it's even if it's supplemented to your business, it's still a pretty big commitment and sacrifice, but it's just so worth it.
Yeah, definitely because it's some we start just as a hobby or just for the interest. So, but along the journey is more important is how we can support each other and then to get grow together with this podcast.
Absolutely. And I mean, the world, I think we need it now more than ever, some points of unity,
Yes.
and open conversation. Like, it's incredible that, I mean, we're here obviously to talk about things and, get pro tips or motivation, but really like that connection and understanding someone else's viewpoint of the world is pretty powerful.
So yeah, definitely because it's the now most before the pandemic is more of a lockdown during this period, but so we really need to take care of each other to have the support from each other.
Absolutely. Well, so now you've had tons of interaction internationally. I was fortunate enough to have, my last podcast was with an awesome guy in South Africa, and I've done a few international ones, some in the UK, nothing to your extent. So I'm curious to know, now that you've kind of been so international, was there any one part of the world that like surprised you or was super interesting that you didn't see coming?
Most I would say it will be in Japan because the Japan they have their own language and then their podcast show also is quite different from ours. So they this is quite amazing for me. Is I'm also connect with some Japanese podcasters, so they we speak in Japanese and then we quite have the quite good experience with them. So it's quite I think really is internationally to connect with each other.
That's amazing. Well, so I've actually been fortunate enough to go to Japan twice, playing
Wow.
lacrosse. Like, athletics have really been provided an avenue in my world. And we actually got to stay with the fellow athletes. So we weren't just in a hotel. We got to see like how the families lived and like how kids our age lived. And I picked up a little Japanese. Tell me if this is still correct or anything.
Okay.
Watashi no nome wa Kristen.
Yes, correct. Yeah, your name is Christian. Yes.
Okay. I said, of all the things I can't remember, for some reason I always remember that. So I never knew how correct it was or whatever. But Japanese is a really, really hard language to
Yes.
learn, and Mandarin's even harder, and they're completely different.
Yes, correct. Definitely, it's a different language, different character, different writing form. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you think English was super easy when you like sat down? You're like, oh yeah, this is easy.
Well, of course, the English is we still can learn because the alphabet, so we just can learn and then to progress it. Yeah, but some sort is maybe the grammar part is more uh, most difficult from Asia. Yeah.
For sure. So
Mm.
I'm curious. So tell me a little bit about how American, or I guess like Western podcasting is compared to Japanese. Like, what are some of the differences?
I can say that the Western because the podcast is from the start in 2014. before, so it's quite already so-called a lot of podcaster in the Western side. But from the Asian side, last podcast I also have some case study about the Asian and the versus the Western podcaster. So for the Asian, especially the Japanese, is still in the beginning and is still in the booming voice for the podcasting. So, but I think the journey and the listenership is still in growing, and then still they can be the monetizing their podcast in the future.
Wow. So you're way ahead of the game. Like, is this going to be like a big part of your long-term play?
Yeah, I think it will be my long-term play from now. As a hobby, as an interest, then I will be continue my journey for as a podcaster to maybe like I see a lot of podcaster in Western. They can continue their journey 10 years, 20, uh, onward. So it's quite amazing for me.
Yeah. How did you hear about Podfest? Like, how'd you find it?
In how to say online, yeah. So
Okay.
I want to start in my podcast in way back in 2019, but I still got some sort of the fear and think that I'm not good enough. I cannot start. I don't know. I don't have the listenership, so I still in the fence. So I haven't joined start my podcast. So until I search online, then in the event brief there, I find a Podfest. So I just sign up to join the Podfest. From there, I heard that a lot of podcasters they just start wherever they want to start, and then just take the first step. Then from there I just start my podcast.
That's amazing. That's a pretty big trip to go internationally where, podcasting, we don't know. I mean, it's sort of a thing, but I mean, it's grown even in these 2 years. But that's a pretty big leap of faith. So you must have had some sort of internal something pushing you to take that leap.
Yes, correct. Yeah, because it's really hard for me. If we didn't really take the first step, we still in our comfort zone. So yeah, we don't want to get up there. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I love that you're a coach and giving advice, and you're quite literally taking your own words of advice. So you're living what you're doing. You're saying, just take the leap, start ugly, just get it out there. One cool thing about podcasting is like there's no real rules yet. Like everything is emerging and changing and evolving so fast that, I mean, I think even the best podcasters a year from now will be like, oh, I don't do that anymore. I do this. Like it's just evolved so quickly. Have you seen that?
Yes, I've been teaching some students as well. They think they might have more priority in their life, so they might want to stop for their podcast for a while. I think that's okay because we have the different journey, different life to go on. But as long as you had time you're passionate about the podcasting, so the journey still can be continued in many years.
Yes. And what a good metaphor for life. Like you can kind of be strategic and have a plan, and you have to kind of be ready to audible and evolve and change on the fly because unknown things happen, and you just have to kind of keep showing up no matter what.
Yeah, my metaphor is no matter how life difficulty, we still can live on, and then the happiness is a choice for us to live our life.
Yes, I completely agree. Happiness is a choice. Some days can get long with podcasting because it's not for the faint of heart. I think people will say everybody's got a podcast. It's everywhere now. And yes, they do. Like we saw a surge of celebrities get in the game when the pandemic was happening. And then you hear about a popular thing called pod fade, where you get a bunch of podcasts out and then you kind of just fade to the back because it is so much work. So if you're in it and if you're listening, you got to give a little love to podcasters because it's a lot of work. Like you're doing the editing, the marketing, like the branding, everything around it is usually hands-on by the podcast host. Do you do all of your own work?
Yeah, I first when I started is I will do all the editing, the script, everything myself. But now I'm start slowly to how to say outsourcing for my editing for the company from them to help me to editing because for podcaster I think most might be agree that editing might take a lot of time for us to do our task. So this is my can consider to outsource the editing part to other professional to let them to handle it.
Yeah. Yeah. At some point it does. It's worth it just to have someone pay to do it. I know when I got in the audio, I mean, that was something I had to completely learn from scratch. Like these were some things that were completely out of my skill set. It sounds like you had a little bit of background with the video editing and everything else. Did that translate to podcasting for you?
Mm. Yes, because I learned to edit video, to create some animation video. So from there, I can start to use the video wise to edit my podcast as well. But sometimes I still have a lot of might take a lot of time for me. So I decide to get some professional to done it for me.
Absolutely. So I want to highlight the community a little bit more. So once you visited Podfest, how many people do you feel like you stayed in touch with and have continued to like supplement your journey thus far?
I can say there should be more than 10 person uh, to get in touch with them. Especially we have the new podcast association, and we have the meeting each week. In the Eastern time will be 12 p.m. Yeah, in my time will be 12 a.m. So for me, yeah, but it's quite amazing journey with them. So to continue each week, we share our small win and to support each other.
That's so amazing. The power in community. I think there's a really cool thing that podcasting displays, that it's a pretty niche tight community. And I come from like the fitness
Yeah.
world, so it reminds me of CrossFit, where it's you sometimes you know, sometimes you don't, but once you're in, it's very, I don't love to use the word culty, but like it's kind of cult-ish. And it's a tight community. The upside is, like I said, everyone has really similar values. So even if you have nothing in common with the person sitting across from you, you have the fact that you're showing up to do something, to podcast, like you have that single common denominator. And from there, usually anything can build. So it's pretty amazing to have this smaller niche community. And then all of a sudden you have international connections all over the world that really share this like-minded, mission-driven sense of work that you're putting out there.
Yeah, definitely, because currently we from the each from all around the world, but with the pardon me, but with the technology like the currently the Zoom, so we can still can communicate with each other without the travel and without the hotel stay. But they really have so-called the connection, even though we use a virtual meeting.
That's so amazing. It's kind of mind blowing. I mean, like I said, you're pretty internationally connected. But again, to have like these immediate connects all over the world, I feel like it just makes the world feel a little bit smaller, which is a good thing, and make us feel like we all are so connected. And then the good thing is you finally do get on the mic, you have a conversation, you're like, oh yeah, I guess we are kind of similar.
Yes, it definitely is. Yeah,
So
sometimes they say, oh, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so what are some of your goals with the podcast or work in general from your entrepreneurial side?
Yeah, for podcast why I would like to I said my goal would like to interview at least 100 entrepreneurs or business owner to share their story and to inspire the audience. So currently I'm still working on it to reach my 100 guests.
That's amazing. Okay. What number are you on right now?
Now my number is 15,
Okay.
15. So it's a long journey for me to go on.
That's awesome. Well, and so you tell me about your masterclass. So for anyone that's listening and did not go to Podfest Origins or Expo, masterclass are like, these are the top of the line speakers. These guys have all the value to bring out there. And if you got a spot, that must have meant you had something really amazing. Your talk must have been amazing. So give me a little bit of description of your masterclass that you presented.
Yeah, just actually presented is about more on my case study, how I'm from the nothing, zero, not non-podcaster, then from my journey to how to story, to grow my podcast, and then to grow internationally, to grow my audience, and then to make up with so imagine the speaker like you, and then for others like during the podcast. So really the actually it's more on the journey, sharing the journey to become the podcast, and then to how to start thing to communicate, and then to how to connect with each other.
That's so amazing.
Mm.
Do you has the podcast supplemented your business thus far?
Uh, I can say yes, because during the podcast, and then they might want to ask me some like the Japanese language or whiteboard animation to help them to create for their for Japanese, they want to learn Japanese, and then the whiteboard animation, they want to create some whiteboard animation for their business for the intro. So it's quite some sort of side income for me, and then to more on the brand, more on the branding purpose. Yeah.
Mhm. Yes, absolutely. Well, and I don't know if you feel this way, but I enter intentionally I come from marketing and branding to
Yeah.
highlight really great people doing really great things. And I'm doing it for the greater good. But every single conversation I walk away feeling like, oh my God, I got so much out of it. If no one ever listens, like it was such a valuable conversation for me. Do you get that out of podcasting?
At this point, I'm still searching on it, how to grow and then how to personal branding as well. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. It's just so much like soul fuel. And then you also, you learn like the branding and everything else. Are you good about like YouTube and TikTok and everything else?
YouTube, I have got post some YouTube for the podcast interview, but TikTok I haven't really go to explore yet. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's overwhelming once you get in because again, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram,
Yeah.
And each one's a little bit different. I've tried to tackle all of them at once with the same content just to try it and get our feet wet. But I think next year we'll do individual pieces for different platforms. And it's pretty amazing. The upside of social media is that we can connect easily. Information is out there. Obviously, there's a major downside. But have you leaned into the social media to really get the word out and about your podcast or your businesses?
I'm mostly using LinkedIn and the IG, and then nowadays is a Clubhouse to get connection with the audience and to get connection with other podcasters as well.
I love it. Clubhouse, I've been on there a couple times. That's the one I got to probably lean into a little bit more. Through these, have you found like a pretty good niche following that's English and or Japanese speaking, like community specifically?
For English speaking, and yes, and then for Japanese speaking also through the linking platform, and then we had a small community, and especially for the English speaking, we had a Clubhouse. We had a meeting each week to discuss about the podcasting, our journey as well. So it's quite based on the community, and then throughout the platform we can really hear the voice and then to discuss it with each other issue.
I love it. Then you have like this podcasting small community, and then you have a small community within that community. That's so cool. Was anybody actually near you, like in Malaysia, or was everybody in America or somewhere else?
Yes, we have some podcaster in Malaysia as well, and then I can say that a lot of the guests, a lot of friends also from the US as well at this moment.
Yeah, you got to tap that first. Like, I think I'm on like 117, I think now episodes. And so it's the first like 50. It's kind of goes by really fast. But yes, it was everybody in my immediate reach that I knew and that had something to say. But I think like you, I was lucky to have some pretty interesting, awesome human beings within reach.
Yeah, definitely, it's a good connection with each other.
Yes, absolutely. That's awesome. Well, I really appreciate you coming on Turmeric and Tequila. Is there anything else you want to share about your business or your podcast with us?
Yeah, I just want to say that it's really good time to connect with each other, and then for my podcast, I still continue to growing and then to invite guests to interview, and then to hopefully in one day to get set to interview 100 guests.
I love it. So you've heard this from Peter right here. He wants to get to 100. So check out his podcast, Startup, focusing on the entrepreneurial journey and some tips, tricks, strategies, and motivation. Peter, I'm pumped. Do you plan on coming to Podfest 22?
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, I'm aiming to be there. May is coming up very fast, but I'm hoping we're there, and perhaps we can connect in person, and maybe we can even do a quick live recording in person.
Yes, definitely. Great.
Well, I appreciate the time and energy. I wish you well, and I hope you soon. And cheers to the podcast community and everybody connecting on a deeper level, because that is what the world needs right now.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the session. Yeah.
Yes.
Appreciate.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you for joining Turmeric and Tequila with your host, Kristen Olson. Tune in next time, and don't forget to subscribe on Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.